All right, good afternoon. It is August 18th. It is 4 p.m. It is time for a Hanford City Council study session. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Martinez.
Here.
Councilmember Reagan.
Here.
Councilmember Payton.
Here.
And Mayor Kyrus.
Here. Let the record reflect Vice Mayor Howes is not present yet. We are going to move things around real quick. We're going to go to closed session real fast. We've got an item that we need to deal with council, so they have another commitment, so we'll break into closed session and come back about 15 minutes at the most. It is 4:14. We are back in session. Let the record reflect that all council members are present. We're going to start off our study session tonight with item A, which is a review of Measure H revenues and expenditures and departmental presentations highlighting accomplishments, projects, and services delivered during the first full fiscal year of 2025-2026. And we're happy to see our finance director and their staff here. I guess that's going to start this off. So welcome to you both. And the floor is yours.
Can you hear me? Yep. Okay, perfect. Okay. So good afternoon, council, staff, and public. Today I'll be presenting the review of fiscal year 20.
Can I have you pull your microphone just a little closer? We can barely hear you.
I'll go closer. Better? Okay. So today I'll be presenting a review of fiscal year 26 Measure H revenues and expenditures. So Measure H overview. Measure H transactions and use tax of 1% went into effect on April 1st of 2025, with revenue distributions beginning in June 2025. While initial receipts were recorded in fiscal year 25, the formal 10-year expenditure plan began in fiscal year 26. And for revenue status, fiscal year 26 is the first full fiscal year of Measure H revenue collections and expenditures. To date, the city has received approximately $3.3 million in fiscal year 25 and $13.1 million in fiscal year 26, with 2 additional months of revenue remaining to be received for the final quarter. Based on the most recent update from the city's sales tax consultant, Measure H sales tax revenues for fiscal year 26 are projected at approximately $15.5 million. Even with the lower than projected revenues will be sufficient to cover current obligations. In total, the city has received approximately $16.5 million in Measure H revenue since collections began. Okay, so the next 2 slides show the city's capital projects funded by Measure H. Expenses include projects for fire, police, streets, and parks. Following my presentation, each department will highlight its Measure H accomplishments. Go back one more. Okay, total capital expenses are approximately $5 million, with an additional $3.5 million set aside for encumbrances. Although fiscal year 26 has ended, these numbers are still preliminary. We are still receiving and recording expenses for services provided through June 30th of 2026. Staff recommends limiting the amount of project funding to be carried forward based on the final revenue received. The next few slides provide an overview of the city's operating expenses funded by Measure H. The first slide here is for code compliance. Year-to-date expense is at $130,000 with $1,747 in encumbrances. PD records year-to-date is about $68,000. PD operations year-to-date expense approximately $612,000 with $52 in encumbrances. PD HEART program expense at $714,000 and $52.98 in encumbrances. Fire and admin and suppression at year to date at $328,000. Rec and Community Services, Youth and Adult, expenses at $29,000. Rec and Community Services Parks Division, year-to-date expense at approximately $95,000. This concludes operations with an ending total of approximately $1.9 million in expenses and a total of $1,853 in encumbrances. Once audit is complete and final figures are available, any remaining funds after CIP carryovers will be transferred to the fund balance, which is the reserve. Okay, the fiscal year 27 mid-cycle budget was approved at June 16, 2026 City Council meeting with an amendment for fiscal year 27. Revenue decreased to 16.4. Revenue projections remain uncertain because the city currently has limited collections data. Based on the updated projections, staff reduced the fiscal year 27 budget for streets pavement rehab projects from $3 million to $966,000. Currently, the reserve balance is approximately $3.2 million, exceeding 15% of the projected revenues. Additionally, as discussed during the mid-cycle budget review, the public safety building remains the city-sized funding priority. Until the final project costs and financing terms are known, staff recommends preserving reserve balances to maintain flexibility for that project. This concludes my presentation. Next, each department will share its Measure H highlights. After all departments have presented, we'll come back together for questions and feedback.
Looks like fire's up. The counting hieroglyphics were really fun. Now we'll get into some pictures.
Good afternoon. Sorry about that. I was one person on my phone when I tell everybody else not to be on my phone, on their phones. So my apologies. All right, so fire really quick. We'll make this very quick and easy for you. Good afternoon. Overview, what we're specifically going to talk about. Communications, what Measure H has actually done for us, from communications, personnel, equipment, facilities, and impacts to the community, as well as what the overall funding was in general, kind of the breakdown of the funding, not very specific, but just general. So funding for this particular endeavor from Measure H for this year, you kind of broke down into communications with 55% of that, personnel was 37%, facilities and equipment was 6%, and special department expenses was 2%. So of the funding that we received, that's kind of the breakdown that we had. Communications, probably our largest one piece that we're doing right now. It's essential to that, again, because one of the top 5 killers of firefighters is lack of communications or communication errors. And this is the specific radio that we've been putting into service that allows us to communicate seamlessly with the police department. It is P25 compliant, so we're hearing all the encrypted pieces. So that's beneficial to us, but it's also a huge piece of the puzzle for us. We're able to communicate with everyone. We had 60 handheld tri-band interoperability radios, 2 extra batteries and a charger for every one of them, 13 mobile unit radios. That means all of the apparatus also were updated. The approximate cost of this was just shy of $400,000. So the remaining balance is going into the rest of all this, the consultation and system engineering study, the antenna and repeater repair and refitting. Once that's done, then we go back, assess what did we do, how is it working, and how effective are we able to move forward. What is it that we need to repair? So it's kind of, we don't know what we don't know until we put the antenna up and then test it again. So we're going to be sitting on a little bit of that money, again, moving into the next fiscal year. And there was a laptop for our comms coordinator. That's a sorely needed piece because all of that is now all digital. He's able to reprogram the radios on the fly, which is a huge upgrade from where we were. Literally, if you put it into perspective, we were in the Stone Ages, and now we're not. Personnel, you had the staff analyst and 3 firefighters. Here's the other firefighter and the 3rd firefighter. So this is the personnel action. That was great parts of me not doing the correct walkthrough of this, but now you see the people that we actually got from the personnel end of it. Facilities was a huge one. And I say facilities from a huge one because what it did is it allowed us to really concentrate on repairs that had been, when we talked about the can being kicked down the road, you're seeing this right here. This is actually the roof at Fire Station 1, what it looked like when they opened it, and it wasn't good. So a huge bunch of money went into those roofing repairs. Station bay door replacements, which is another sore need for the department. Air conditioning maintenance and repair, locking door and handle sets. This is another piece of the dry rot that was there. So all of that, walking around and looking at the building, so we're actually able to address these specific needs. There was plumbing for Station 2 appliances, electrical work at Station 2, air conditioning maintenance and locking door handles at that location as well. The other thing that we actually did as far as equipment, Station 1 safety glass for the bay doors. So when the bay doors roll up, a lot of that glass was not safety glass. You can imagine plate glass above your head rattling around. So all of that got immediately changed since we had Measure H funding. So we're really addressing a lot of the safety aspects for health and wellness of our personnel. A drinking fountain and everything else was done at Station 1. Again, if you saw that old relic, many of you saw that on your tours for Measure H, that got replaced. The whole wall was redone, and that's a huge testament to our internal folks here. Refrigerator, data display screens were done. You're seeing what we call here Station 2, a PPE extractor. That's that little box in the middle of it. Looks like a robot. That's the thing that cleans all the turnouts for the firefighters so that we actually don't have that exposure to those carcinogens on their gear. Each one of the stations now has an extractor. We don't have to wait. It decreases our downtime, decreases all of that exposure to the firefighters. So we're really addressing all the things that we really talked about doing. Same thing with ice machines. As much as you think, well, that seems like a luxury, ice machines are central to our ability to keep the operation moving, because if we keep our firefighters up and running, and because we don't have a lot of them, we need to make sure that they are a well-oiled machine. So that really does help us quite a bit. Station 3 also got an ice machine. So now all 3 fire stations have ice machines. We don't have to go to Public Works. Public Works doesn't have to go to us, back and forth. It's really fleshing out a lot of these central pieces of equipment. And then Engine 41 got some communications equipment. All in all, what was this impact? How did it actually make it better for the citizens? There was a faster critical task completion. There are essentially 22 tasks that have to be completed in the first 5 minutes of a fire. Adding that one person allows us to be 25% faster in completing those 22 essential tasks. So just that one firefighter a day helps with those critical tasks. And all of that data comes from this particular study here, this report on residential fireground field experiments. So it's not just Dan Perkins, the fire chief, wanting to get gold-plated toilet seats for the firefighters. This is actually factual-based items that come from research from the federal government. Accelerated water application. We get water on the fire 6% faster with one additional firefighter. Really what it boils down to is how does this now impact the safety of the residents? We can get to someone that needs us in a rescue scenario 80% faster because we don't have to wait for an additional piece of equipment to start that rescue mode. So all of this really does decrease property loss and increases life safety within the boundaries of the citizens of Hanford. If there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those for you.
So, Chief, when you're talking about the enhanced rescue capabilities up 80% by adding that personnel, that's because you have enough personnel on scene now as a team to go in and make entry, right? Where before we would have to wait till additional equipment arrive to have the personnel on scene to be able to, for the safety for those teams to enter, correct?
Exactly, because the law states that you have to have 2 in, 2 out.
Right.
So that fourth person or that additional firefighter added a fourth person to that one apparatus that allowed them to immediately go to work in a rescue scenario rather than having to wait for an additional group or additional fire engine to get there.
And that's the unseen, right? That's the thing that you might not be able to see, but that extra personnel provided that,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for the chief? Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
So, for Recreation and Community Services, one thing that we learned through the Measure H polling was there was an express need for youth and senior programming to be expanded and enhanced in our community. And that's what our departments focused on. So, Measure H funded one recreation coordinator, an additional to what we previously had, whose focus is solely on youth and senior programming. And this last spring, we started our first ever toddler soccer program. Measure H funded the equipment to allow us to be able to do this. So we actually did it in the Civic right next door. We bought goals, we bought artificial turf, and it was a huge success. It sold out for 2 sessions. And we served a total of 73 3 and 4-year-olds. So you can imagine corralling 3 and 4-year-olds. But for many of these young people, it's really their first exposure to recreation and to sports. We also partnered and we're ongoing Major League Soccer, MLS Go. And they get the jerseys, the authentic jerseys of Major League Soccer. And it went over really, really well. This fall, we've got a whole group of programming. I'll go through them fairly quickly. But on the youth side, we're going to start NFL co-ed flag football ages 6 through 13. This is in some of our surrounding communities. Again, the NFL has branded this program. They get the jerseys of their choice. And flag football is kind of exploding all over the world and the United States. So that's something that we're currently in the schools and we're recruiting for. We're going to continue to do soccer camps, continue the toddler soccer program. And then we're also going to start the NJB junior basketball mini camps. And those will be held at the Longfield Center, and that's for ages 6 through 12. Another population that we know we need to do better, that's our senior population. And so what we have with them is our senior wellness workshops, and these are focused on a lot of mental health with seniors. Many of our seniors in our community are kind of isolated. And this brings seniors together to socialize and to have that group to meet with and share their lives with. And it's very, very important. In addition to that is a leg strength and balance class. And really the purpose of this is to prevent falls, because seniors falling is one of the number one preventable injuries. And oftentimes it takes a long time for recovery, and sometimes they don't recover fully from a fall. In addition, we continue the creative writing program. We've kind of revamped that just a little bit and expanded it. That's actually held at the Remington. So we're also working with partners in the community, and we continue our aerobics and our water aerobics classes that are very full, very vibrant, and we have a wonderful instructor that's been doing it for a long time. And they love her to death. And this group of people, boy, don't mess with their aerobics classes because they really love it. So with this, happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions or comments for Mr. Albert?
I have a question. Mr. Albert, is there any cost associated to participants on these programs?
The toddler soccer did have a cost on that. Some will be free, some will be fee-based.
Okay.
And we also, again, offer CDBG scholarships to all those in need.
Anyone who would apply, so they wouldn't
Correct.
be able to...
Yeah, we offer that, Mr. Martinez, to all of our recreational
And that's
programs.
covered through CDBG money.
That's correct. They allocate that money so folks can go to camp and do sports at no cost.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Brad, I haven't been in there for a while, but Tilted, back a long, long time ago, whenever it was, what was the name of the gym whenever they first did it? In the old Kmart building? No, it wasn't. Yeah, InShape, whenever InShape did that building, they have an indoor pool. Okay? They probably still have the indoor pool there. But I mean, I know that the water aerobics program that you do would only be during the summertime.
Yeah, we extended that through October this year.
Well, my thought is if you were to take and talk to Luke Faria, which is one of the owners of of Tilted, might be able to take and coordinate something with him on continuing the senior aerobics throughout the winter too.
That is something they always ask for, to
I mean,
extend it as long as we can.
It would be good, and it's an indoor and it's a heated pool.
Thank you.
Brett, I was just seeing on like the soccer and all the youth programs, do they have business sponsorships like for the MLS, the toddler soccer? Was there business sponsorships or
We don't yet.
I was going to say, could a business who may want to sponsor a team, help with the costs for those on the team possibly and kind of incorporate that, not just the jerseys, but maybe, some fees that for those that may not be able to, afford it or something that in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. We run a very robust sponsorship program through all of our events, and we're always out in the business community looking for folks to support youth and seniors, both. So that is something that we absolutely can look to in the future.
Because I was even thinking for the creative writing program, having, because a book is published and
Correct.
maybe having some, business sponsors to help assist with that cost as well for the seniors.
Yeah, absolutely. They publish a book yearly of all of their stories, and one goes in the library, and each of the writers get a bound copy. So I think that's maybe one of our local printing companies would like to be a sponsor for that.
Brad, one of the things that might be a good fundraiser for the city to do is to take and do a cookbook, because whenever we opened up the vault with the time capsule, the cookbook that from back in 76 seemed like it was something that was super, super popular, and having different people in our community, if they were to take, or even if we were to use some of the recipes from that cookbook and everything else and do a cookbook, I think it would be a good fundraiser that could take and go towards some of our youth programs.
All right, Mr. Albert, thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, Brad, one thing you didn't mention is the fishing tournament that you have coming up too.
That's correct. That's not a Measure H per
Okay,
se,
got it.
but it is coming up September 12th. I'll throw my plug in.
Okay.
Thank you.
My lure in.
Lure, there you go. Good afternoon, Chief. Captain, welcome both.
Okay, yeah. So our Measure H Year 1 update, what it's done for us, we have up there people, vehicles, community impact, and future facility. And I want to thank Captain Lutz for putting together some pictures for you as we go through this. So the people, the staffing that was added through Measure H, 4 patrol officers, 4 hard officers, 2 CSOs, an IT analyst, so 11 new positions in total. That's helped provide additional public safety. You'll see here in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about what that's done for our response times. Hard officers adding to that unit to assist with dealing with the rise in calls regarding vagrant subjects and trespassing, and also to assist code enforcement with some major cleanups that have been able to be accomplished so far. Adding the 2 CSOs to provide additional support to our patrol staff. They've taken on some extra duties wherever we can utilize non-sworn individuals, freeing up time for our officers. An IT analyst dedicated to assist the department and support us with all of our technology issues and technology software systems and programs. So that's where we're at with that.
So with those added bodies comes additional equipment and vehicles needed. We were able to purchase 8 police vehicles, plus the equipment, meaning the lighting, rifles, everything, MDT, cage, you name it, it's in that car to go into service. 2 community service officer vehicles, which you see to the right, that are EVs. They pick up bikes, help officers pick up equipment. And then the equipment and technology, which includes Axon body cameras, Axon tasers, the full gear setup that you need, carriers, handcuffs, less lethal shotguns. I mean, I can go on and on. There's a lot of equipment that's needed for every position. And up in the right-hand corner, there is the Powered by Measure H sticker that you might see on some of our new vehicles. Nice. So that people know that that's what Measure H purchased for them.
I have a question. Out of those vehicles, how many of them are electric and how many are gas?
So the only electric vehicles that we've added to the fleet are the 2 CSO fully electric trucks. I know that Russ can probably answer that question better, but we have to have a certain percentage of electric vehicles in our fleet, and so we're accomplishing that by adding those where feasible.
Thank you.
So Measure H also, like I mentioned, expanded the HART outreach and park safety. You'll see one of our HART trucks there powered by Measure H, as well as just a photo from one of our recent cleanups. It's also providing more visible patrol presence and, like I mentioned earlier, assisting patrol officers by eliminating some of those vagrant calls that the HART team can handle, provide resources, and get people to the services that they need and where they need to be. It also allowed us to extend the hours of HART, so we now have 7-day coverage, whereas before this was a Monday through Friday coverage. They're starting earlier in the day, ending later in the evening, and covering 7 days a week. So I think one of the things that we're most proud of in 2024, when we started talking about Measure H and the need for it for the police department, one of the biggest concerns we had was our response times in 2024. And when we came to the community in 2024, we had an 8-minute average response time for priority 1 calls. That's our emergencies. That's the 911 calls. That's where lives could be in danger. We were looking at a 19.5-minute response time for priority 2 and priority 3, meaning 2 is urgent, but it's more of a maybe property crime, not necessarily lives in danger, and then priority 3 being non-emergency. So since the addition of these extra bodies, we have seen that drastically reduce. Our priority 1 emergency calls is cut by 50% from 8 minutes down to 4, and a little over 38% reduction in priority 2 and 3 calls from 19 and a half to 12 minutes. So that for us is huge, and I think it really shows that this has been a huge benefit for public safety.
Yes, in regard to the future public safety building, property has been identified in the area of 6th and 7th and Harrison Brown. Property acquisitions underway. But you can tell that it's a very large site, and it's in a very good area of town because it starts the east side, downtown east side of Hanford, which I think it centralizes everything we need to do and where we need to go. And basically, it's a long-term public safety investment. Like our current building is over 50 years old, which we just celebrated that, and it shows. But this will be welcomed and overdue.
So just as a recap, what we were looking at is 11 new positions, 10 new vehicles. That's because our IT specialist didn't have a vehicle, expanded services, and our exciting future facility progress. That's all we have. And any comments and questions you might have.
Council, any questions or comments for Chief? You know, Chief, just to note, and I think it's an important highlight, and I'm glad you had the slide, when we talk about response times and the reduction, and we talk as we add personnel, the ability to reduce those response times, and I think this is part of, you know, what, when we went out for Measure H and we showed the emphasis on public safety and and the impact it could have, just that 50% reduction in time in emergency calls is huge for the community, I believe. I mean, and I think as we continue to add additional personnel, we're going to see those times even drop further. But I'm happy that this council has made the decision that we did, and the community supported our recommendation, and we're starting to see the impacts of that. So thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you're doing, and for all of the staff as we move forward. All the things that you've done related to Measure H are critical to show the community that we're holding true to what we said we would do. And I love was it built by Measure or built on Measure H? Powered by Measure H. I love that. I think that's great to see that, so people understand that, hey, this is where your tax money is going. So thank you.
One thing that I'd like to say is one of the things that I really like is both with fire and police, by adding the additional manpower, I feel like it also helps our officers and our firemen be safer too, because by having the additional support and everything else, I've seen so many times recently where you see one police car pulled over and you see 5 there, or 4 or 3 or whatever, but multiple and everything else, to where they've got the support and everything and the backing from the other officers. I mean, and that's one of the most important things that we need to do, is protect you as you guys are protecting us. And we appreciate everything you guys do, both, again, with fire and police. Thank you, guys.
With the increase of the hard officers, has that allowed the reunification programs that you have a little bit more flexibility in making sure that there's still officers here, as well as, can you explain that? Can you kind of elaborate on that? And is Measure H funding those reunifications, or?
So we still do have the reunification program, and sometimes what we would see is we would have someone who had a place to go, reached out, asked for somewhere to go. We may not have had an officer available to take them. So I think really just that coverage that we've been able to expand. They're there 7 days a week. We really have more opportunity to reach out and make that happen if someone has a place to go and wants to relocate.
Perfect.
Do we have any kind of numbers on how many people have taken advantage of that program, reunification?
Not off the top of my head, but I can certainly get those.
I'm just curious. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Captain, thank you. Next up, I would suspect community development.
You got that right.
Mr. Waters, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. For code compliance was allocated 2 full-time positions and $100,000 towards community cleanup and abatement. So with those officers over the last 9 months, there were 1,100 notices of violations issued, received and responded to approximately 500 complaints, with the most common violations or complaints that we've received being the following: property maintenance, right-of-way violations, building code violations, and parking violations. Abatement stats. So, and this number needs to be modified a little bit because we just did an abatement, and once the final costs come in, we'll know. But approximately $56,000 in property abatement costs in the last 2 months, with 3 major abatements having taken place. One in Human Shepherd, Human Polar, and then the 800 block of East Lacey were all pretty substantial cleanup efforts. Like PD, there was a vehicle associated with the new officers. We also have the fun Powered by Measure H sticker on there as well, so people recognize that these positions are funded and these vehicles are funded by Measure H. Also want to show you some before and after pictures of cleanup. So this is one of the cleanups on Hume. So this was before, and this is after. So we're able to remove the materials in there. Also removed the vegetation, since that was attracting nuisances in that area. This is the other one on Hume. So again, you can see a lot of dumping on there. We're able to clean it up afterwards and get rid of the weeds as well. This is the most recent cleanup on Lacey, which took place, I think, this week, if I remember correctly, early this week. Again, a lot of material stored on the property there. So this is the before picture, and this is after the cleanup. Everything was removed. So want to sort of reiterate that those cleanup dollars, without those dollars, we wouldn't be able to do this. The advantage that Measure H provided us is that upfront capital costs. Usually when we deal with these, you have property owners who are unable or unwilling to clean up, so the city is at least initially on the hook for paying for the costs associated with the abatement. That $100,000 allows city staff to immediately, hire someone to go out there and clean up, and then, we can recover our costs in the future. So those are almost, I think of them as almost like startup funds, right? You have that money that allows you to implement this. Wouldn't have been possible without Measure H, these cleanups. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Jason, do you see the 100,000 being enough, or because you said 56,000 within the last 2 weeks? So as budget, or we're thinking about how we can best serve our community, is 100,000 enough?
I think so. And in addition to that, the hope is that these funds start revolving, right? So we pay money up front, but then we can put a lien on the property for the costs associated with the cleanup. So those dollars should make their way back into the city, right? So over time, you're going to have money coming in and out. So okay. I think right now the 100,000 is certainly working thus far.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else? I'll just make a comment. I know Human Shepherd, we've been dealing with that area for, my entire time on the council, and I know this kind of caveats back to the additional personnel with public safety, with the HART team expansion, with the abatement on the code compliance side of things. I think the cost, it's good to monitor it, because I think as HART becomes more involved and they're noticing where these encampments are occurring and the things, the causes that have to be dealt with on the tail end are getting caught a little sooner. So maybe the expense of those cost, to clean those areas up might help come down a little bit. But I think that's been our big help. I know the area of Human Shepherd and the people that are down there are very appreciative of the work and the efforts. I get the phone calls from the people down there, and they're just, and they let me know when there's a problem. They let me know when they start seeing it come in, so then I, provide that to staff. But it's nice to see, and I saw with last week on East Lacey and the things that are impactful. People see that, but then when they see us out here and they see the after pictures, it makes a huge difference. So to code enforcement, to their staff, and the hard work that they do, I truly appreciate it.
Yeah. And certainly, I'm glad you brought that up, Mayor, certainly collaborative effort. They work closely with the HART team, and both of them play a role in this. And so, we're fortunate that both teams work together really well there.
When I look at the picture of Human Shepherd here, in comparison with the way that I physically have seen it in the past, this is nothing. So obviously you guys have taken and got it to where it's a little bit more under control. I think it's sad that there ends up being a lien put on the owner's property whenever it's not his fault. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I just wish there was some way that we could take and do it without having to take and penalize the homeowner because of things that are beyond his control whenever we've got people that just basically abuse other people.
Yeah. And we're always working on that. And I think something we have noticed is that proactive property owners tend to do a good job at making sure, if someone's on the property, they immediately call HART or call code enforcement. Typically, the only time we would apply a lien is oftentimes a property owner knows or is an absent property owner.
A lot of times there are absent property owners, exactly. And they may not realize what's going on, and
entirely possible. Mm-hmm.
But in those cases, they're receiving notices as well. So
we,
code enforcement is sending out the notice of violation, with what's going on. So they are informed.
But if they aren't from here, it's a lot harder.
I know, but okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Centeno, Ms. Hart, welcome.
Good afternoon, Council. Frank Centeno, Utilities Engineering Director, and Associate Engineer Jacqueline Hart here. Pleased to provide the City Council an update on engineering's projects and available to answer any questions as well. So these are the three projects currently being overseen by engineering. 10th Avenue, Fargo to State Route 43. This is the pavement rehabilitation project. Number 2, the public safety building project. And then last, fire station number 4. These are three line items here, but significant projects indeed. The major projects, each with each placemaking type projects in their own right, and I think they represent or exemplify really a huge investment the community's making in its infrastructure, and I think again it's a testament. Without Measure H, these projects would not be possible. So I'll cover the pavement rehabilitation portion and then hand it over to Jacqueline. These pavement rehab or pavement rehabilitation is different from pavement preservation. Preservation type projects are covered by Public Works. These are the very intrusive type, impactful projects on the pavement roadway. The type of strategy, really they're limited to maybe 2 or 3 pavement strategies. One is a full depth reclamation. Sorry, let me back up. The first is going to be a grind and overlay where we come in and just surface and remove the upper maybe couple of inches, replace the wearing course. The second is slightly more intrusive, is going to be the full depth reclamation, and there we grind and pulverize the asphalt and the underlying aggregate in place, and then we add cement additives, whatnot. We strengthen it, and then that serves as the road base, and then we'll pave over that. So it's very economical, very environmentally friendly, since we're using the materials in place. And then third, the most intrusive is altogether removal and replacement. Removal and replacement occurs when there's damage to the pavement beyond just the service life of the pavement itself. Usually what's happening is that there's an underlying structural issue, and that could be just over time you have more traffic loading, a different type of traffic loading that was not designed for, considered, when the road was originally designed. So it really, the condition of the roadway is going to dictate the type of roadways repair strategy. In the background, that is a good example of cracking that's going beyond just the pavement. Those are deep cracks and ruts that are extending through the entire pavement section. So this would be most likely an FDR, not Franklin Delano Roosevelt, but full depth reclamation. And because, as such, they require significant engineering analysis and design, again, because these are very impactful, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of geotechnical work that looks at the underlying soils to optimize, what's the best strategy. There's a big cost difference between all 3 strategies, so that's important to keep in mind. These type projects, they require traffic control. Usually the work is done in phasing. And then on top of that, there's traffic striping, outreach, very, very impactful work. So that's why these projects typically take at least 2 years. They're multi-year type projects. The first year is usually the planning phase, getting RFPs, evaluating what that scope is going to be, moving into design. That's the first year. And then we bid the project and construct it in the second year. So with that, we have 10th Avenue, FDR, full depth reclamation from Fargo to State Route 43, with a budget of approximately $2.8 million. That is a picture of the pavement condition of 10th Avenue. We're currently in design. We're a little bit behind schedule, but we're hopeful that construction will occur summer 2027. And with that, I'll pass it on to Jacqueline.
Thank you, Frank. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'll be giving a brief update tonight on some of my favorite projects in the city, the public safety building and the fire station. And I'm gonna go ahead and start with the public safety building. So our public safety building, the needs assessment is underway. So we've completed our information gathering, which is where we talk to our police and fire staff and do interviews with them. We have operational discussions, and we also do tours of the current facilities, which is really neat. And we also do project team coordinations. We're talking amongst different teams within the departments as well. Right now, we're working on what's called program refinement. So we're looking at the initial draft of the space needs assessment. So we have completed that first draft. And what we're looking for are obvious wants versus needs, and trying to identify anything that might be redundant or even unnecessary that might be in those that initial draft, just as part of a fiscal due diligence as we're going through that step. And then now we're looking at decisions that are ahead to create that final space needs assessment, and that's really going to be based on staffing and staffing projections and also needs of the station as well. And right now we're working on a study to look at those staffing projections to make sure that we're basing those on real data and not just assumptions for the future. And now on to Fire Station 4. So we have officially kicked off Fire Station 4 project, and we're working right now on our needs assessment, and we've started with information gathering. So the information gathering includes fire staff interviews, operational discussions, tours of current facilities, and also project team coordination. And this helps establish the scope of the design. And that kind of mirrors that same needs assessment we did with the public safety buildings, very similar process. So we've completed that initial information gathering, and we're moving forward into the actual draft of the assessment. All right, and then on to next steps for the fire station and the public safety building. So starting with Station 4, we're currently working on a programming and location study. So part of the needs assessment is programming, and this helps establish the current and anticipated operational requirements of the station. And these requirements provide the basis for determining the station's subsequent space, the site, and facility needs over the next 50 years. So it's very important as we plan this multi-generational facility that we're looking at how the station itself is set up, how it's located on the site, and what is incorporated into the station itself. So, and that leads really well into our location. So one of the things we're also doing is a time response study to help us determine the actual location of our new station. So this is critical because we want to place a station where the city is expected to grow. So things we're going to look at as we look at this time response are projected developments and the population growth of Hanford. Also our emergency response coverage and travel times currently. Existing and future infrastructure. You can see Station 3 up here pictured. That's one of our stations that we currently have. We also look at roadway access and land availability within the city, and also our relationship between police and fire facilities. And we're really looking at doing that data-driven approach as part of our due diligence of placing this critical infrastructure. It really is, we're building for today, but it's for the generation of tomorrow. And we need to make sure that we incorporate that as we design these stations and buildings.
I have a question. Isn't it already proposed to be over there off of Centennial?
So that's one of the proposed sites. So there are multiple locations that have been identified for future stations. And that is one of the sites that we're looking at as well. But we do want to make sure that that site is the best location for the station itself for the next 50 years.
That's exactly it. The study will help to validate the correct location.
What other potential sites are you guys looking at?
We're not quite there yet. I mean, it's a matter of looking for vacant area.
But also I was going to say on the possible station and where Centennial and Greensville's location, it's on the west side of the tracks. And there's times, I mean, I've seen fire trucks be en route and they're waiting for a train. And so, eventually, as we look forward, hopefully the grade separation takes place, but also making sure that on the west side of Hanford that we have, a station.
Oh, yes, definitely. That's one of our biggest considerations on our time study that we're looking at is those railroads, because we do want to make sure that we're placing stations so that the firefighters can respond to locations in the city within the time allocations that they have for their response.
I had a client that literally lost her house because fire trucks couldn't get to it
And
because of train.
It's one of the amazing things about Measure H, right, is that we have this money to actually do a space and a location assessment so that we can try and help prevent things like that from happening.
And this is looking beyond just Station 4. We are looking at, it's a comprehensive study as well. We're looking at all,
Like a potential future Station 5?
5.
Okay, that makes more sense to me then. Okay. Thank you.
All right, and then one of our next steps for the public safety building is the building elevations. And this is actually one of my favorite steps in the process because this is when we get to choose the look of the building or like the architectural style. And this has a few different steps to the process. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to refine the preliminary architectural concepts through staff and council representative review, kind of narrowing the alternatives to like 3 or 4 different options. That way we don't overwhelm people. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take those 3 or 4 different options to Measure H committee to look at, to get review, feedback, recommendations on those options. And we also want to do community outreach with this. I mean, this is a 50-year building that's going to help represent the city, and we want to make sure that the public gets that opportunity to look at the different options that we're looking at architecturally. After that step, we're going to incorporate what's called a constructability and implementation review, and that's to ensure that the preferred concepts are practical and cost effective. So that'll help make sure that it's feasible to build in the space that we have, and also fiscally responsible to build that style as well. And we'll close out the building elevations by presenting the refined concepts and also the findings during those different outreaches to our city council for consideration of the preferred architectural aesthetic, which is always very fun. And I think that concludes engineering's presentation. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Any questions or comments for staff? Just a quick comment. I'm so proud of what we're, Measure H and what's happening. We talked about a public safety building. We talked about fire stations. We talked about this, and for not only for this council, but as the councils move forward, as these decisions are getting made, and have that community involvement is going to be really critical. Because this is their money, this is their tax dollars at work. So I definitely love to see the engagement. Reaching out, having the community's input on the selection of what that looks like. But I'm super proud, and I know the other 4 colleagues up here are as well, that this is coming to fruition, and it's well overdue. And I will say and apologize in advance, I know we've put a lot of work on utilities and engineering here in the last year to bring projects to fruition, and I appreciate the hard work and the dedication and commitment that you and your staff have, because I know we've got a lot coming at you, and just bear with us, but we're doing it for the right thing, and at the end of the day, our whole community is going to be in the betterment of it. So thank you all.
I just wanted to add too, as you mentioned, members of the community, giving input. I just want to give a shout out. I know the staff, we could only do so much when it came to Measure H, but Victor Chavarine led the Measure H committee and was the getting out there with the signs and education. And so I just wanted, since he was in the audience, I just wanted to give him a shout out as well, because he was instrumental in the passage of Measure H as well. So
I was also going to take and say that having the Measure H Oversight Committee helping direct and helping make sure that the dollars are being spent the way that the community wanted them to happen is huge, and everything else. And we appreciate all the work that they're taking and putting into making it happen. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you both.
Yeah. Sorry, Russ was on our presentation.
Mr. Shirley in Public Works, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. We'll be talking about all the divisions within Public Works and the improvements we've done with the help of Measure H this past year. Some of our projects, we'll talk about the parks abatement projects, pavement preservation, some of our current funding in streets and public works positions, and some equipment that we have purchased. You guys all know that we took a big investment into the Bob Hill Youth Athletic Facility with the snack bar. These are all the repairs done out there at that facility this year in addition to the snack bar project. All these were completely funded by Measure H. So without Measure H, we wouldn't have all the trash receptacles. I think the biggest one for the people that have been out there is the lighting. We replaced every light with LED lightings out there. We had to do an update on the controller, made some dugout fence repairs. We did a lot of work that we wouldn't have been able to do without Measure H. Some of the other areas that we've done in parks, it's out at the softball complex. We had an irrigation booster go down. We had to have that repaired and installed. Purchased an infield prep machine and a trailer to go with it, along with a lawnmower and some shade structures out there. Centennial Park, we had some vandalism out there with the basketball court lighting that we've repaired. Another irrigation booster pump needed to be replaced as well. And then at various parks, as you walk into the Civic, you can see the fountain out there. It hadn't worked in many years, had some drainage issues, some electrical issues. We were able to use Measure H money to get that going, poured back with the proper drainage and everything. It should be in great condition. Rock wall repairs at Hidden Valley Play Structure. We did some rodent control, various parks. I'm sure we've all been in the parks and you see the gophers having a heyday out there. So we've been trying to eliminate those. Did some fall surface repairs, some more field lighting, irrigation controllers. We did lose a splash pad controller at Freedom Park that we were able to replace quickly. We did some restroom upgrades out at Harris Park. And then a playground slide at Hidden Valley and Freedom Park. Now on to pavement preservation. This is actually a road that we did last year, I believe. Single fiber, those projects will be starting here real soon. We're doing 337 square yards of single fiber this year. That will be equivalent to roughly 16 miles of street. Double fiber, this is what we do on our arterials like Lacey, Grangeville, 11th Avenue, 10th Avenue, our busy roads. We're doing 180,000 square yards of material out there this year. It's about 4.8 miles of streets being done with a double fiber. With that comes lifting of manholes and water valves. So you can see we're raising 116 manholes and 182 water valves with this project. Some positions and equipment that we've taken care of. Measure H did provide 2 parks employees, full-time parks employees with upfitted trucks. They do have the Powered by Measure H on there, and that's helped us in parks a great deal. Council did approve the purchase of a used Leeboy paver and trailer. That will allow us to do a much better job when we're doing our pavement preservation, as you see out on 12th Avenue. We currently use a Baker Olson to pave back. If it hits a rock or a piece of gravel or anything like that, it picks up and there'll be a bump there. That will be cleaned up probably next week, so it'll be nice and smooth before they cover it. Pavement preservation materials, this is the material that we use to go down in the streets when we mill it out. We have Measure H provided about $320,000 for asphalt and related materials. And then we had some funds from Measure H in our building maintenance. This year we were able to replace 12 air conditioners on City Hall with that. Was in desperate need. Anybody that's been in there a hot day when the air conditioners went down, it's not comfortable. So with Measure H, we were able to take care of that in building maintenance.
I have a quick question. I'm seeing the spider web, I want to say, or crack ceiling on the roads. When the single fiberized seal goes over that, will you be able to see?
Typically not. If my staff is heavy-handed, which they've been trained not to be, you can see them. But they're trained. We bought a special disc that goes on the applicator that kind of smooths everything out and gives it a level surface.
Because there's some roads, in this project that are just looking at it right now, that, the questions have been asked of me, is this going to be looked as the next layer comes on?
No, it should not reflect through.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
If there's a road that has some potholes in it, but the road looks really, really good, that's been replaced in the last 2 or 3 years, but there's some divots in them. Do you guys like to know about those to take and try to fix them?
Yes, you're probably going to see some potholes around town right now because most of the crew's been out on 12th Avenue preparing for the project.
I just didn't know whether it's an inconvenience for you to know, or if you want to be proactive to take and try to.
Like I tell people when they call, we can't be everywhere all the time, so we'll take any input the public has to offer.
Okay. I've got some locations to tell you about. I'll get a hold of you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you foresee us doing, or the Public Works doing, about 20 miles a year in roads? I mean, over the 10-year expenditure plan, I'm saying 200 miles. We have about 230 in our city. So, I mean, over 10 years, possibly, do you see all of our roads being addressed?
There is a possibility. It's all going to depend on Measure H funding. If the funding's available, we will use it and put it on the streets.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and the other one thing I'd like to add is I know when your crews are out there working, the signs are out, it says, project funded by Measure H. Shows the community again that, their tax dollars are being used. I know roads are kind of, with everything going on, kind of, it's in that scale, but it's on I wouldn't say lower end of the scale, but it's, we may have to defer, something 1 year to do the next year just based on the way the funding and stuff comes in. But I'm like my colleagues, I think over that 10-year plan or over that 10-year cycle, the road repairs are going to be completed. It's just a matter of how it comes through, and I'm glad to see that we were able to get the paver and the trailer and that stuff to do some of that ourselves. So what I will say to the community is take a deep breath. Sometimes it's a process in how things get done. As you can see in the picture here with the crack fill, and people are like, oh no, that's just the initial stage to get the cracks filled, and there'll be a coating on top that goes over that and makes it look a lot better. So
I think as the projects go, the community be a little bit more patient in a sense, because I've heard, venoms, spider webs, patchwork quilts, all of these analogies, but they're not understanding at first of just getting that information out of the different phases. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Correct. And you will see areas that get crack sealed that aren't on our project list currently. That's us trying to get ahead of next year's projects. And if it's a real bad area that we're trying to preserve the road as much as possible, excuse me, that's a great way of keeping the water intrusion out. And once you get water intrusion in the street, it's going to look like 10th Avenue.
Yeah.
You just lose the base.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for all your work, Russ. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, if I can. I just wanted to answer Councilwoman Regan's question earlier regarding family reunification. We had 69 family reunifications from July of 25 until July of 26.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, now back to us. So for Measure H and Department Summary and what's next. Okay, we are sticking to the plan of the first year spending plan for Measure H. Thank you, Brian, for putting this together for us. Projects and personnel listed here are completed or ongoing. So he just put all the departments and all together for us to have a nice list there. And then what's next? The city currently has only 4 quarters of data, and revenue projections are still unstable, but should it'll be more reliable in the next few years. We only have 4 quarters, so that we still are pending 2 additional for fiscal year 26, like mentioned. Staff will continue to monitor Measure H revenue and maintain a balanced budget. The expenditure plan may need to be adjusted over time. The plan serves as a guide, and the budget will continue to be reviewed and updated through the regular mid-year and mid-cycle budget processes. And also, Measure H, additional 1% sales tax has been and will continue to be transformational for Hanford. Without this vital funding, the departmental investments and community improvements presented tonight will not be possible. Thank you.
Council, any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Before I open up public comment, I just want to add the slide that Mr. Johnson prepared with the breakdown of the Measure H stuff. I mean, I think this is a great informational banner for us to get out to the community for them to see. And so I really applaud that effort because I think that's important for us to kind of just keep getting that information out to the community, showing that we're, being proactive. The other comment I want to make before we get into this, and I think we kind of gets lost in the woods a little bit, is we have an advisory committee made up of our community that came together and have worked diligently since not only with helping get Measure H passed, but since its inception and making sure that we as a council and the city honor the commitment that we made to the community over the 10-year capital improvement plan. So to the advisory committee, thank you for your hard work and your dedication and your insight, because it's important for us to all work collaboratively and to make sure that we can deliver to the community. So I just want to recognize those members for their hard work and their due diligence that they've done in bringing this first year to fruition. It's starting to show the impacts that it's going to have. So if any council would like to add anything, please do.
Oh, just those are great presentations. That was super fun to see all the good stuff that comes from Measure H, all the fun stuff that we get to purchase and people we get to hire. So thank you, each department, for the update. It was very interesting, and it really stacks up. Like when you see it consistently, you don't realize till you look back and see it all put up there in one spot how much we've gotten done. So that's really awesome. So good work, everybody.
I would love if we could take, and this sign, if we could take and get more out on social media regarding this here. And then also if there were some signs that were made that were put in prominent locations around the community so people could see what's actually happening and that it is working and everything else, so they can take and have that positive reinforcement. Because I think that the public needs to know that what they voted on this is some good stuff.
It might be cheaper just to post it on social media, but maybe buy an ad in the newspaper, or I just signs as people are driving. I don't think this is too much information as somebody's driving by to be looking at. Maybe we'd need more police protection because they're running red lights driving as they're reading, or going by a school. I'd be concerned about that, but I would see. I agree with you that this information definitely needs to get out to the community, because we owe it to the community to say we're being good stewards of the taxpayers' money, and we said what we mean, and we mean what we said in getting things done and delivering those projects. And I think that's very important, and it's to every staff member and director that made a presentation today, job well done. It was kind of like, and there's more, and we were able, and there's more, and it was just, I think it was very exciting, and I think I totally agree with my colleague here that we definitely need to get it out, but the signs, I would think that it'd be not as effective as if social media presence and
even if
newspapers or something of that nature.
Even if we had it out here by the park, so whenever people are going to farmers market to where they're seeing that, even if we just had a handful of them.
Or get it on have a podcast. We might know somebody that has a podcast in Hanford somewhere that get them, to be able to share this good information as well.
Martinez?
I just want to say thank you to all the department heads that made this presentation. I mean, it really brought everything into perspective as to what's going on with the money that we're being responsible as a community, as a town, as a city. And I just want to say thank you, because you're doing an awesome job, and this is just the beginning. Thank you very much.
And I'll just jump on with what Councilwoman Regan said. And I guess I'll look to staff, maybe, but maybe we could do a postcard, mail or something, or something included in our utility bill or so. I don't know. Just something to might be something discussion we could have for future, or, or at least maybe to make the recommendation to the advisory committee, maybe something to consider. But it might be
that's a great idea to put like a single sheet, like an annual report.
Just this information on it so people can see what we've done. So
like in the utility bills of some sort. I'm not sure the cost that would be.
Mayor, Council, we're going to look into that. We appreciate the feedback. We'll look into all those options. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so at this time, we'll open up public comment. So if anyone has any comments they'd like to make.
Even if we.
Good afternoon, Bob Ramos. I live here in the city, and a very good presentation. But I do have a question for fire. Chief Perkins, I remember as the Measure H citizens went out to different sites that at the fire station 2, I think it's on Houston Avenue, there was a conversation pertaining to if certain things get done. I can't quite remember the what had to be done to lower our fire rating for the city. And I wonder if what's happened in fire helped reduce the fire rating for insurance purposes, any amount. And maybe Chief Perkins can answer that for us. That's my question. Thank you.
Chief, yeah, if you don't mind, if you come up to the podium, if you don't mind, that would be great.
Absolutely, that's a fantastic question. So specifically, our ISO rating did go from a 2 to a 3, which is a downgrade. Primarily, that was due to, number one, a lack of a training facility that's open and accessible to the firefighters from Hanford. So we're addressing that in Measure H, but it won't be until year 6 because we have so many other prioritized needs. However, the Fire Station 4 design speaks to response times, which is an element of ISO. The professional staff analyst also is an element of ISO ratings because of all of the administrative paperwork that comes with hydrant inspections, all the other elements. Communications equipment is a huge piece of that. It's 10% of the possible total points because that will also speak to our ability to be congruent with the communications plan with the police department. So our ability to have that interoperability is also an element of that. So it's going to take time to get us back to that. But because of all the elements, and especially the staffing, the firefighter staffing alone will come with Fire Station 4 once it's built, as well as stacking that along with the 3 firefighters will propel us not only to go from back to a 3 to a 2, but possibly even to the highest grade possible, which is a Class 1 fire department, which is the Hanford Fire Department's ultimate goal. Especially, I think that's achievable within this decade of funding from Measure H. Does that answer all your questions, Mr. Ramos?
Thank you, Chief.
Hello, everyone. Victor Chavarine, resident of Hanford, Measure H, Oversight Vice Chair. We received this presentation about 2 weeks ago from all the department heads, and we just wanted to reiterate the same thing that basically you guys did, is that this is an amazing accomplishment for year 1. There's always more that we can do, and year 2 and year 3 and year 4 are going to be better, but it's a great starting point to show the citizens of Hanford what we are doing with the money they're giving us, and it ensures reliability, trust, and stability within our city. Priority 1 calls dropping 50%, or not calls, but response times dropping 50% is a huge accomplishment for our police department, and it's only going to get better with the continued work of our city and making it where people want to come live, where people want to come do business, and where people want to come work. And so Destiny and her team are really awesome to work with the oversight committee. And like you guys said, we are being fiscally responsible. We're watching everything that we can, and we're asking important questions to make sure that the processes are done right and that our citizens do have oversight in this trust and in this process. So thank you guys. Thank you for the department heads for this presentation. And so We already stressed to Brian, and so obviously I'm going to throw it in again, that we got to blast this everywhere because we want to show our community that they should trust us a little bit more with the money they're giving us. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. You see no other comments in. Oh, Madam Clerk, anything online? Okay. Council, any other questions or comments before we close? Can't wait for year two. I agree. Thank you all to the staff. Thank you for the presentations. It's a great way to start. And like Mr. Shabern said, it's year one and it's amazing, and we're just going to keep growing. So thank you all for your hard work. Okay, so it is 5:30, and we are going to go into closed session. All right, good evening, everyone. It is August 18th, 7 p.m. It's time for the Hanford City Council meeting. We'll begin with roll call. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Martinez.
Here.
Councilmember Reagan.
Here.
Councilmember Payton.
Here.
Vice Mayor House.
Here.
Mayor Kyrus.
Here. And let the record reflect that all council members are present. So we're going to start off with our invocation tonight, and we have Pastor Lori Niles here to give our invocation. And after, if everyone would remain standing, and Mr. Ramos is going to lead us in our flag salute. Welcome.
Thank you. I would like to take just a moment for personal privilege, if that's okay. I serve both Hanford and Layton communities, but I'm not the only one. Last week when we had a fire in Layton that was very, very serious, the Hanford Fire Department showed up. And I just would like to thank them for that service beyond county lines, beyond city limits. I'd like to thank you. Creator God, we come to you, a people who have many needs in this community. And we thank you for those who serve. We know that you know the hearts of those at the highest levels and those who are in the deepest level of need. And so, Lord, we pray that those who are making decisions tonight would make decisions that care for those, the least of these in our community, and at the same time honor the efforts and the work of those who are striving to move the city forward. We thank you and we ask for your wisdom and guidance. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Reynolds? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Mr. Ramos. So I'm going to look to our city attorney for a closed session action report.
Thank you, Mayor. So with respect to items A, B, and E, there were no actions taken.
And Mr. Mayor, with respect to items C and E, no actions taken.
Thank you both. We'll move on to our public comment. This is the time for citizens to comment on subject matters within the jurisdiction of the Hanford City Council. This is also the public's opportunity to request an item from the consent calendar to be pulled for discussion purposes or to comment on any item on the agenda. State law does not allow the council to discuss or take action on the issues not on the agenda, except that members of the council or staff may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed by persons exercising their public testimonial rights. A maximum of 3 minutes is allowed for each speaker. Please begin by stating your name and providing your city of residence. So at this time, we'll open up public comment for those in the audience.
My name is Leon. The American Empire is dead. You can't cover up the truth with a token of one Hispanic council member. In the past 15 years, I witnessed the following criminal activities in Hanford, the money laundering and drug operation at local liquor store, city officials and vehicles extorting money from the local taco trucks. I guess that guy's not working here anymore, so anyway. Drug operation at local tire shop in Florinda Apartments, allegations of certain local Hanford police officers taking bribes to look the other direction, trash throughout the community, and I was openly threatened to be arrested for picking up the trash for the community. In the last city council meeting, I observed this council praised the city manager for doing a good job. However, if you don't acknowledge you have a problem, you can't fix it, sir. And these days, and these issues are still happening today, to this day. My recommendation, we need more Hispanic police officers in this community that respect the badge with integrity, but don't hire anybody like Avenal PD. In the ending, I would like this council to pass a message to the district attorney's office. We know of the ghost employees on the county payroll, and Sacramento is aware of the situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leon.
Hi, Anna Berkshire, live here in Hanford. And I just had questions on item D and item F, and I wasn't clear what they said as far as the closed action, if D had any kind of, if there was more discussion on that one, but for sure D and F, and I'd like to know the funding sources of that and just a little bit more explanation on those two items. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berkshire.
Victor Chavarine, resident of Hanford. I wanted to come up and talk real quick, and I know this isn't really a city issue, but it is now a city issue. But the Mid-Kings GSA had sent notices to all property owners within the city of the Prop 218 that they are doing. And so almost every resident should have received a ballot by now. And so it's important that we read this and get the understanding of it and understand what the process is for and what the 218 is for. It's not another money grab. The Mid-King GSA is not part of the city. It's not the city increasing our utility rates or anything like that, but it's an important aspect of ensuring local control to ensure our farmers get the help they need. And so I don't know if the city can help with that, with getting some information out there or anything like that, but I think it's important for the residents to know, because at a meeting last night, a lot of people in the room didn't know what was going on or what this was for or why we should vote yes. And at the end of the meeting, it was almost a consensus that everyone was supportive of it, but the idea of more education is very important. And it's not just on the city, it's Mid-Kings GSA as well, and the county, but I think a good conversation starts here as well for that. And so that's the biggest thing I wanted to bring up today. And then I also want to thank the council for addressing the data center issue with their release the other day, but also tonight in the agenda item. I don't know what decision you're going to come up with, but again, so many people in our community have spoken against it, and obviously very much against it for the health and well-being of our citizens. And so hopefully you guys continue the right path forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chavarine.
Bob Ramos. Excuse me, I live here in the city, and Victor kind of summed up what I was going to talk about, but I'm going to explain from what I understand regarding the meeting we had last night, that by voting yes, you will pay a tax on your property bill, which will be a small amount. But if you vote no, it's like giving the authority to the state of California. And by doing that, we don't know what they're going to do. At least the local people, by voting yes, which gives them some money to fight this, will have the money to kind of work on our water and keep it here. So I'm voting yes and not let the city take over our water. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, any comments online? Okay.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is April Pacey, and I'm a resident, and I live on Fargo Place. I'm here regarding the August 7th notice changing the addresses of all 12 properties on Fargo Place. First, I want to be clear that we're not objecting to the annexation. We understand that we're now part of City of Hanford, which is totally fine. We're just asking whether our existing Fargo Place addresses can simply be grandfathered rather than renumbered. I just recently found out about this Saturday at 1:46 p.m. I got a text from my neighbor stating, showing me a piece of paper that went to the post office that our addresses are going to be changed. Not to the residents, not a 30-day notice, not anything, no information at all whatsoever. It's just going to be changed. When is it going to be implemented? The papers didn't give that information either. These are not new homes. We've been here, that residents have been here for more than 50 years. The information that we received on October the 7th of 2024, I sent you some packets on page 2 of that. At the very bottom, it says, what is the, or is our address going to be changed? The answer is, it depends. Okay, well, it depends on what? Well, it depends on if you don't have a city-style number that has 4 digits. We have a 4-digit phone. We had a 4-digit number. Nobody on that street had any idea when we read this in 2024 that it was going to change our addresses. I used to be a reserve deputy here. I'm very familiar with the counting, the numbering out in the county with the 5 digits. So we just assumed 4 digits. Hey, we're going to still keep the same 4 digits. Don't understand why it would need to be changed and go into this other grid section. I talked to Tom Webb today. Made a phone call to him. He said it's mainly for emergency services and also to do the grid, the geometric or geographic grid or whatever for addressing, and I get that. But as a former reserve deputy, if you have one little section of 12 houses, I'm hoping that you guys would take that into consideration, that we could be grandfathered in, and just also want to make sure that you guys could give us the information about what ordinance or what authorization you guys have to let us know when this is going to take effect, if it does, or how we can fight it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pacey.
Good evening, council members. My name is Joe Soto. I also reside on Fargo Place. Back when the annexation happened, I was reluctant. We didn't have a choice. In '92, we did have a choice not to be annexed, and we won. This time, which is 2024, we were annexed regardless of what we thought. So we were annexed. I've been there since 1987. The city encroached upon us. They grew up around us. We didn't have a choice. At the time, that's why I moved out there, because it was county, and it was out in the city. It was beautiful. Behind me, nothing but cotton fields. The city went ahead and grew around us, and now you're imposing your rules and restrictions upon us. One being, like Mrs. Pacey said, is changing our numbers. I don't see the reason why. The other night, matter of fact, I think it was Saturday night, we did have a fire. Somebody went ahead and blew a firecracker right across the street and put our neighbor's tree on fire. The fire department responded to our current address with no issues at all. You know, they were there within maybe 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, while we were trying to put it out. So I would like to go ahead and, like Ms. Pacey said, reconsider, because that would also do some hardship, trying to change each and every one of our Social Securities, benefits, everything. We have to change everything to this new address, which would be kind of a pain to us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. Is there any information you want to provide on that?
Mr. Mayor, council, members of the public, the last 2 public comments are in regards to annexations and conversion of their address to city standard addresses. That would not be a council action. With all annexations, all addresses are considered or treated the same, are brought into the format of the city, primarily for emergency response. I could ask our Deputy City Manager, Community Development Department, to follow up with the concerned speakers tonight and explain further on that, but I do not see a council action of this item. This is operating standard that normally happens during annexations.
Thank you. sorry, I can't hear you. No, I think we'll have staff reach out to you and can have that conversation. This is Jason Waters, our deputy city manager here. He community development. He'd be the ones that will reach out to you, have that conversation, and you guys can share that dialogue with them. Mm-hmm. Okay, seeing no other public comment, close public comment, move on to our consent calendar. And the consent calendar items are considered routine and are enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these matters unless the request is made, and then the item is to be removed from the consent calendar to be discussed and voted upon by a separate motion. So, council, we have items A through J, and we have items D, E, F, and H being pulled for some recusals. Mm-hmm. So I'll entertain motions for items A, B, C, G, I, and J.
Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion for A, B, C, G, I, J. G, I, J, did I get that correct?
G, I, J, you got it, G, I, J. Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Payton.
I'll second.
Second by Vice Mayor House. Any discussion? Madam Clerk. Items passed 5-0. So we'll move on to items D, E, and F, and I'm going to request Mr. Martinez and Mr. Mazzotti recuse themselves. So, Council, we have items D, E, and F.
Mr. Mayor, can we handle this all in one motion, or do we need to have a separate motion for each?
It could be one motion. Okay. Mayor, Council, just for clarification on items D and F, item D revises the purchase and sale agreement on that piece of property. So that's what this action is. The main source of, or the source of revenue, or the source of funding for that purchase is Measure H, and that is, item F also relates to that same piece of property, and that is for the environmental assessment on that property, and the funding for that is Measure H. These properties are being looked at in conjunction with the public safety building to be built, just for clarification for the public.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tavares. So I'll consider a motion for items D, E, and F.
I move to pass items D, E, and F.
Second.
A motion by Vice Mayor Howell, seconded by Councilman Payton. Madam Clerk. And the item passes 4-0-1 with one abstention, Mr. Martinez. Okay, we can have Mr. Martinez, Mr. Mazzotti come back. And we have item H left on our consent calendar, and Mr. Payton is recusing himself from this one.
I didn't realize we still had one more.
What? We have Lubac. So item H, we pulled for the recusal. Any entertain a motion?
I move to pass item H.
Motion by Vice Mayor Howes.
I second it.
Second by Councilwoman Regan. Madam Clerk. And the item passes 4-0-1, one abstention. Councilman Payton. Councilman Payton, welcome to come back. Welcome back. So we'll move on to our general business. Item A, the community development, the land use regulations, and city authority for data center facilities. I'm going to welcome our Deputy City Manager and Director of Community Development, Mr. Jason Waters, and Ms. Gabrielle Myers. Join us.
Good afternoon, Council. Before you today, we have a presentation that goes over the city's sort of the policies associated with data centers, how the city would handle proposals for data centers, and what types of considerations might be in play. So the purpose of tonight's discussion is to explain the city's existing land use regulations as they relate to data centers, to discuss how property ownership and government functions might affect the city's authority, describe potential environmental and technical reviews that could take place if there were a data center proposal within city limits, receive council direction if there are any next steps at all. This isn't an action item, but staff is happy to receive comments from council during the presentation. And also to, want to reiterate that tonight there is no project approval or entitlements or anything like that associated with this presentation. So the current status of data center approvals, data center and edge computing facilities are not identified as permitted or conditionally permitted uses in the Hanford Municipal Code. And what that means is that the code doesn't have any specific language about allowing these types of uses. So in those cases, it defaults to them not being allowed because they're not specific uses that are called out that are allowed within city limits. So that's the current status. If we were to receive a proposal for a data center that came directly to the city, our comment back would be, hey, these currently are not allowed under the Hanford Municipal Code. Having said that, we haven't received a formal application for a data center facility. We haven't approved any data center facilities or authorized any data center facilities to move forward on a project. And there haven't been any amendments to establish locations or change our current development standards before the council. So this is the first time we've brought this to council. We haven't previously brought anything to you to change our current standards. As mentioned, property ownership could affect the city's authority. For example, state and federal agencies or entities may not be subject to local land use regulation when carrying out government functions. Whether local regulations, whether our regulations apply, depends on the nature of the proposed activity and its location and possibly its relationship to the government purpose that the property serves. What that means is federal and state agencies have land use jurisdiction over their properties, right? They have the ability to build and do things like that under their own set of rules. Oftentimes, it's not always the case. It would have to serve, or whatever's being proposed, whatever project is being proposed, would have to serve a government function associated with the ownership of that land, if that makes sense. Having said that, even though that it may not require a city approval, we would expect them to coordinate with us because there may be utility coordination, there's going to be environmental coordination, those type of things. But we would need a project-specific determination in order for us to make a call on that. So how the city's roles may differ. If a property or if a proposal, a data center proposal, was on let's say a state or federal parcel, our local zoning and permitting authority may be limited. As mentioned, they're subject to their own set of rules and regulations. Another public agency may serve as a CEQA lead. What that means is they would be the agency that's proposing the project would be responsible for preparing the environmental documents. It wouldn't be the city. And the city would participate primarily as an affected agency and a service provider. So what that means is if they were going to prepare, if it was on federal or state land and they were proposing a data center and there were an environmental document associated with it, the city would have the ability to make comments and make requests associated with the impacts that are outlined in that CEQA document. Now, if the city land use authority did apply, that changes things, right? If this were a private development within city limits, zoning regulations and development standards would apply. We would act as the lead or responsible agency, so we would be in charge of the environmental document in that case. And the city would directly review and act on required applications. Having said that, I want to go back to what I previously said. If we got an application today, that was on private property within city limits would not be allowed. Unless there was a change, that would continue to operate in that fashion. So how would we evaluate a proposal if for example, City Land Use Authority did apply? We would need several things. First would be a request to change the zoning ordinance. So if we were to change from where we are today to allowing data centers, it would require a change to the municipal code and the zoning ordinance that would explicitly say data centers are allowed under these specific conditions in these specific locations. The process would require public noticing, recommendations from the Planning Commission, and then eventually approval by the City Council. If we did nothing, if we didn't move forward on anything, we would continue today with our current ban. So environmental and CEQA review. So in addition to meeting zoning requirements, a project, regardless if it's on state, federal, or private property, would need to be evaluated for potential environmental impacts. CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act, applies statewide, right? There's no exemptions there if it's on property within the state of California. Some potential areas of review would include energy demand, water supply, traffic and circulation activity, environmental justice, noise, vibration, and air quality, utilities, drainage, and wastewater, and then cumulative impacts and project alternatives. So if a project were to be proposed on exempt properties, state or federal properties, these are the types of things that the city would look at in an environmental document and that we'd expect to see in an environmental document, and that we would want to comment on if we had questions or concerns. So to summarize here, the city hasn't approved a data center, nor have we received a formal application from anyone. Currently, the municipal code does not allow for data centers. Allowing a data center, if the city were to move in that direction, would require change to the municipal code. And that would entail a lengthy process to get to that point. Not all properties in city limits are under city's jurisdiction. As mentioned, state and federal properties kind of have their own set of rules that they operate under that are separate from ours. And the city's role depends on the ownership, activity, operator, and government purpose associated with that property and with the proposed data center. So again, as mentioned, data center proposals, state and federal properties could require city approval if they do not serve a governmental function. So in order for that sort of exemption to apply on state or federal property, there would have to be a nexus between the data center and serving a specific government function associated with that government agency, if that makes sense. If it does not serve a government function, then it's possible that they would need city approvals prior to implementing the project. And again, no project approval or municipal code amendment is before council tonight. Staff is not proposing any changes. I just want to make council aware that if there were any changes, there is a process by which we would need to take place. And with that, happy to, anything I missed, Gabrielle, on the presentation? Great. With that, happy to answer any questions or comments that council may have.
Council, any comments? I just want to just reiterate, so CEQA, the environmental side, if something were to come or, outside of the city's jurisdiction and the environmental study would be conducted, the city would have its opportunity to review that, express all the concerns that they have with the proposed environmental report that is submitted, and then they have to respond to that, correct? I mean, they have to provide a response as how that impacts or doesn't impact the city's concerns or whatever. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So I know as it stands right now, we have nothing out there. There's no authorization for data centers within the city of Hanford. And if it ever happened outside of the jurisdiction of the city and CEQA, the environmental side was done, we would be involved in that process to review that and be able to express our concerns and things of that nature at that time.
Absolutely. I would expect that staff would absolutely review that to make sure that all impacts are being considered in those documents.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for the report. It was very thorough.
Any other questions or discussions from council?
I just appreciate the report. I think it's getting that right information out there to let the the community know that about the data centers and any possibilities of coming to Hanford and what the criteria would have to be. And as of now, no zones allow any type of data centers in the city limits. So thank you very much for the report.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a great presentation. I love the way that everything stands right now as it is. So that's excellent news.
So no action needs to be taken, I think, which is good. We have our policies and regulations in place at this time, so there's no change or no interest in any change in that, so we'll just proceed forward at this time. All right. Yeah, no, I'm just with the way things are in the municipal code. We'll just leave things the way they are. And
I was just
sorry,
clarifying. Proceed forward.
Yeah, I know
like,
that's
with
good. Great point. Yeah, that might have been a bad word to use, so that's a good call.
All right, thank you.
So at this time, I'll open up public comment.
Do we have public comment during general business?
No, you don't want to have it. Okay.
No, I mean
it's up to you guys.
I don't mind having public comment, but I just during a public hearing. But if there's individuals here that would like to speak on this issue, be more than welcome. I'll be okay with if we have a consensus.
Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment.
Wait, no, I was waiting.
Oh, yes, council gave consensus. Yes, sorry, Mr. Champy. Thank you.
This is just a question. This is reasonably interesting, but what qualifies as a data center in the definition of what's going to be a data center? I see your network room is open. I hear the motors running. It's consuming electricity. I don't know if anybody's in there spritzing it with a Windex bottle to keep it cool, but what's the threshold from having a network room, which are everywhere, to a data center, which can't be anywhere? Thank you.
Happy to answer that question if council would like us to.
Sure.
So what we look at is primary versus incidental uses, right? Sometimes uses have multiple functions, but it's incidental to the overall use. So in order to have a city hall or even a grocery store, something like that, they may have a closet that has servers in there or electronic equipment, but they aren't necessarily a data center. That use on that property is incidental to the primary use, which is a grocery store, or in this case, it's council chambers, right? And this is incidental. A data center wouldn't be incidental. The primary function and use of the building would be that. So it's a great question. We often have these discussions internally of, is this an incidental use or is this a primary use? But usually we can tell when we get a proposal. If it's a data center, it functions as a data center, right? So that hopefully that answered your question somewhat.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Ying, welcome.
Hi. I just wanted to bring up something because you're going to also, what I want to say is Lemoore Naval Air Station, they have, it's going to be a bigger deal too. So you're going to have to also, won't you have to, they're in a federal situation, but it's going to be interesting to see how they approach it too, because they're going to have to deal with that. I know that's in the jurisdiction of the city of Lemoore, but I know it isn't us, but it's going to be interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. Any other comments? Okay, we'll close public comment. So staff, thank you for the presentation, and I think it'll put the community at ease with some of the concerns that we had at one of our prior meetings. So thank you both.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, next on our agenda is general business item B, Public Works. This is a review of the City of Hanford Landscape and Lighting District maintenance practices. We have both Mr. Sterling And my mind's going blank. I'm sorry.
I've got Deputy Director Diaz with
Alvin
us.
Diaz. Mr. Diaz, I'm sorry. You're fine. It's just kind of one of those nights.
So tonight we'll be going over a presentation on landscape and lighting districts. I know we've talked about them quite a bit extensively the past year. This is a cost analysis of continuing with contracted services or starting to perform with city staff. So with that, I'll hand it over to Deputy Director Diaz.
Good evening, Mayor, fellow council. We have a small presentation for council tonight. Our topics of discussion are recently awarded landscape maintenance contracts and costs for consolidated landscape maintenance services with in-house city staff. And a small overview, I'm sure councils have seen this numerous times, but the city oversees the maintenance of 44 landscape assessment districts and 3 community facility districts, totaling 64 acres with a contracted maintenance crew. And we currently have 3 separate contract companies that are doing the work now with these recently awarded contracts. The city also has several CFDs in various stages of development. Those include Stonehaven, Lunaria, Neves, and Copper Ridge. Each LAD or CFD is a standalone entity and funded by property owners within the district. Currently, we have 5 districts with no maintenance to them. With costs for utilities and maintenance increasing over the years, staff have been forced to reduce the level of service to balance expenditures and revenues. These 5 districts were extremely deficient and did not receive the required ballot approving an increase, so the maintenance was eliminated in these districts. City staff continues to keep them hazard-free. To the best of our ability, we have responded to several down limbs in these districts and removed the limbs as needed. This has also become very highly visible in the city. We receive a lot of calls and questions as to why those districts look the way they do, and these are generally from people outside of those districts. The recently awarded maintenance contracts were awarded with an RFB. RFBs focus on a detailed scope of work with clear direction to contractors, focusing on the lowest price from a qualified contractor. The RFB also has a square foot cost for maintenance, a structure level of service format, and a mechanism for withholding payment for contract noncompliance. And this is just some examples of those new additions to the contract, and this is basically the level of service and how we calculate those costs. We have an A, B, C level of service now. We were able to negotiate with the contractor to do a level of service or a cost lower than the 33% for level C for 2 of our districts, which was Hyde Park and then Sierra Vista, and these are all in coordinate 5. So we were able to keep maintenance to those districts at a reduced level lower than the 33% reduction. And then these are our calculations for the contract withholding. So if we have a contractor that's out of compliance for trash or debris in their area, that district would be, the payment would be reduced by 10% for those withholdings. And we do have a process that we notify them, give them time to correct before we do the deduction. These are the new contract rates. We formerly had 4 quadrants within the city. Those areas were starting to become extremely large with the growth on the west side of town and the southwest side of town. So we split them up into 5 coordinates to kind of reduce the square footage in those areas, and then to try and get more contractors to bid on them. So you wouldn't have just the big contractors coming out to bid huge quadrants. We try to get smaller contractors able to bid on those. And you can see the square footage monthly cost and the square footage annual cost, and there is an increase in those. The biggest in coordinate 1 and 2 went up to 29 cents annually. The others are 23 and 22 cents, which is it is an increase. Consolidated city services. Landscape maintenance would be performed by city staff. creation of a new public works division, and the division would be responsible for the maintenance and management of the landscape maintenance districts and community facility districts. And then over the last several years, staff have seen an increase in costs for contractual services. Some of the factors that have created this increase are state prevailing wage requirements, state mandated minimum wage increases, and fuel and material costs. After reviewing these costs, staff found that the costs had increased to the level that in-house staff could be comparable or less expensive in some applications to not only perform the current level of maintenance, but also improve response times in resolving maintenance issues. These are some of the pros for consolidated city services. Staff members would be on site daily. We'd be able to respond quickly to irrigation, tree, and safety hazards. And another advantage is we feel that it would increase the level of service for the districts. Some of the cons, initial startup, staffing will take time to recruit, hire, and train. And if you're hiring a large number of people, you don't always get a total number of qualified applicants that would fill, so you may have to do 2 recruitments to fill those positions. Equipment procurement, vehicles, lawnmowers, and power tools will take time to go through the process and purchase those. And the initial cost of that equipment, we've calculated it at $220,000 for the vehicles, trailers, lawnmowers, and power tools. And the maintenance would have to be started in phases because we would have to hire those people, train them, and slowly take over areas and release the contractors from their contract. In reviewing this is a kind of a spreadsheet that has the costs for city staff and contractual services. The city staff costs also includes 5% for their step increases, while the contractor has a 3% CPI increase, which is we've seen as an average over the last several years. The lower cost also includes the replacement of the vehicles in there for a 10-year lifespan on the trucks and lawnmowers and a 3-year lifespan on the power tools. And you can see that the initial cost is more expensive, and at the end of the 5 years, with all the increases, it is still $873,000 more expensive to do it in-house than it is with contractual services. Now, that's not to say that at the end of these contract periods, that when we get bids, that the bids come back higher and it's more comparable. But this is what we're calculating at our current contracted rate. With that, we can answer any questions council may have.
Were the lawnmowers or was all the equipment all electric versus gas?
No, it was gas.
First of all, I just want to thank you for the report and everything. I know that you've worked endless hours with the landscape assessment districts, and I know in District A, predominantly every neighborhood in my district is a landscape assessment district or a CFD. And so this really hits home to our district of making sure as costs are rising, as you said, with minimum wage and all the, prevailing wage, the cost of equipment. And so having these comparables and really seeing, because initially for me, it just was that, okay, in-house would be a lot better. And members of my district or residents in my district will like, why can't we do it in-house instead of contract out? But I appreciate, and you've laid it out that it is a considerable amount, almost $1 million more to go in-house as opposed to contracting out. But one thing I really do appreciate is the accountability and the standards that the city currently has right now and that this council has adopted to make sure that we're holding these contractors accountable for the services. And if they're not completing the services, there's mechanisms put in place to start deducting a percentage of what the residents or the LEDs in the neighborhoods would have to pay. So I appreciate your work on that in bringing those standards to us and bringing that level of accountability, because overall it's a win-win for our neighbors because our neighborhoods are going to start are looking better. And so I appreciate that. So thank you.
So basically, your consensus is it would be better if we hire out.
It is less expensive, and we feel that with our new contract that we can hold those contractors accountable to continue to provide a high level of service.
But these numbers are not based on contracts that we've gotten back. This is just a projected.
This is based on our current contract that we just awarded, and they started on August 1st.
Okay.
How long is that contract in effect for?
It is for 1 year with additional years of that we can add to pending mutual agreement.
Will we be always looking for that comparison? Because if it gets to a point, I mean, you were talking about hiring worker. If we decide to go in-house because the contracted price is a lot closer than $900,000 in comparison, but then we have that long hiring process that we have to go through. So when would we figure out, like, when it is even, like, say, or it's in our hands, will we be able to be prepared, or do we have to extend out longer in the contract? How would you see that happening?
I think if we go through this maintenance contract and we put out to bid, we may have to award for that year and give us time to recruit, buy the equipment, everything else.
Because we have in that contract, if I remember correctly, we can get out of that contract. Is it 30 days, or is it what is the time frame that we can rescind the contract?
I think there's two different ways of getting out of it: without cause or with cause, and there's different time frames. I can honestly tell you the exact time frame, but I think if we were to award a new contract after this contract period, it would be best to go the full year to give us time to staff up and get the equipment and everything for that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it makes sense to continue doing what we're doing, but I still have dreams that we could take care of it ourselves. But we'll see. And didn't we just renew the contracts?
We just awarded new contracts
A couple months ago?
Yeah.
It felt like it was not that long
Yeah,
ago.
we were hoping to have them initiated on July 1st, but we had some time to get bonds back and do all of that stuff, so they started August 1st with the new contract.
Okay, so we'll, in essence, this next year, we should see better results.
We should, and we like I said, we have the mechanisms in there to force them to do a better job.
Yeah, and then we could always revisit eventually later.
Yeah.
If we wanted to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is our contract right now currently with somebody local, or is it somebody out of the area?
So we have one contractor from Tulare, we have one from Clovis, and one local.
I just wish we could take and keep our tax dollars here local, so they keep getting respent.
And that's the reason we did split them up into smaller areas to try and entice those contractors to bid. We did receive 4 total bids, but the other was from Clovis also. So we only had one local bidder.
So we're making progress and going, but it's not.
We're working on it.
We're working on it.
Well, I'll tell you, I think, I mean, for me personally, I'm on the other side of the fence. I think we need to, I think when a city has an opportunity, when you outsource things, it's very difficult to bring things back. But I also look at the city having an opportunity to add some better controls with our own staff, handling the maintenance and upkeep of the LEDs, and having crews that work for us, that are part of the city staff, that will make things happen. And there's benefits to that, where I think we go back in the earlier years. I know when we had staff that were responsible for the parks and stuff, that were specifically assigned to a certain park and things like that. They took pride and ownership in the work they did, and getting that done. I mean, I know that the cost up front is, there's always a cost, but I think if you could, I'm always for looking for employment opportunities for our local people, And I don't know what that number would look like to hire for those 5 quadrants, to what that staffing level would look like.
We've calculated 9 employees with the supervisor.
9 total for all 5?
9 maintenance and then 1 supervisor, so a total of 10.
I just like the idea of, we could give some of our citizens an opportunity at, employment and I understand it's hard to, it's always hard to find those, people, but they're out there that take, ownership and I think would, better service. I'm just saying, I think it's something we need to at least keep open. We're in contract for a year, and I'm not saying get out of that contract, but I think, one of the alternate motions tonight is to, consider moving forward with it being in-house. I'm always in favor of having a service in-house rather than contracting out, if we have personnel and staff to be able to handle it.
Well, this might be a question for you then. When you say in-house, is local landscapers also acceptable because they are from Hanford as well as if we did hire the 10 employees in-house or had all local contracted businesses from Hanford, would that kind of suit the same need or is your same request?
No, I mean, I don't think that option is there. I don't think we have, when it goes out for bid process, we're not getting, 4 or 5 local vendors that are, interested in doing that.
Well, I was telling Councilman we got 1 at least,
right.
So, I mean, we're in that process,
No, I get that. I'm just looking at, the opportunity is there. I'm just wondering if especially, is it SB...
AB 1572.
1572, thank you. That where the non-functional turf has to be taken out by 2031 or 2030, whatever it is. I mean, I just think having, you're going to have to contract out to have that done. This could be something that, if we hired people, and had the staff here to do that, there'd be a cost savings there, having in-house. I'm not opposed.
Yeah.
So I just starting to think about, what the next 4 or 5 years look like, but at least it's worth the consideration to maybe just dig into it a little deeper and kind of see if it's feasible. And, I look at the offset, you're $100,000 a year differential. I mean, the 200 and plus, for the equipment I get, and the replacement costs and all that. But I guess my question to you two would be, is it feasible? Do you see where it could be feasible and where it could be beneficial to the community to consider?
I think it would definitely be beneficial to the community. Feasible with the way the LAD is structured. I think that's going to take a lot more looking at. Right now, each LAD is its own entity, so we would have to get with finance and everybody else and and go over how we would approach that.
Because the LADs are still funding. I mean, they still...
So I think some of these are underfunded. With the increased cost, we would have to figure out how that would work. Is the city going to do a benefit cost to all districts, or would that be only associated to the ones that are underfunded? Have to sit down and discuss that. I don't know if legally we could offer that benefit.
And I look at that too, because I know there's portions of the city that are not LAD controlled.
Yeah.
And a lot of those are in my district, south part of town, that their landscaping and stuff in that area is just, I mean, if you drive down Hanford Road between 12th and 11th, just look at, the landscaping that's there. It's nothing. It's dirt and some trees. And I just wondering if, if we can improve the overall aesthetics of the city by, having it in-house and having better control. And, we've talked about center medians and things like that before, and keeping things caught up. I just think we have, might have better control over it. So that's just my food for thought. And I'm not saying eliminate the contract. I'm just saying, should we consider looking into it more and seeing if it's something that's possible?
I think annually, when the contract comes up again, that we, or the council at that time, would have to, make that decision and look deeper into. I mean, I spent a lot on learning about landscape assessment districts over the last 4 years and analyzing and having conversations and ride-alongs with you and making sure, that I can answer the questions that my constituents have. If we're looking at in-house, the total city cost, when you say the total city cost, is that also considering workman's comp, retirement, unfunded liabilities?
That's weighted salaries, uniform costs, pool costs, all of the fuel, all those costs that are associated.
But not the retirement or
that's included in there because
included.
it's the weighted salary.
So it's
yes.
already included in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another thing I just something to consider is, we've gotten away from LEDs. We've gone to community facility districts, right, to, get away from this dilemma that we've had to deal with these deficient LEDs. And so new development as it comes in, we're, are on the CFD side. So, I just think there's, it's just something else to consider is, maybe, there's a way to, and again, I'm not saying it right now, but I think giving the next year to maybe dig into this a little better, because I mean, quite frankly, I don't see that big of a difference in cost. I mean, and I like the idea of the control.
But I also see that sometimes we don't have control with that AB 1572. By 2031, we're going to have to, in those landscape assessment districts, anything that has turf, anything that has grass, they have to get rid of it, if I understand the legislation correctly, and the LEDs are going to have to pay for it. It's going to have to, and it will depreciate the fund balances that they all have, and we might be in a situation where we have more than half of our, and I'm just speculating on the percentages, but we will have a lot more that are going to be in a negative balance because of the cost of replacing the irrigation, removing the turf, replanting, because the city would not, if we had in-house, we wouldn't be charging prevailing wage. It would be their wage. But according to the contracts that we have signed with these companies, any additional work is going to be $65 an hour. And that's going to be at prevailing wage. So that's something that we have to look at it if we did it in-house and all of this, or could we do that, own landscaping in-house to save the neighborhoods money instead of paying the contracted services, or is that in the contract as well?
If we did it in-house, typically those charges for staff time is still charged to the district, so they would still get a cost associated with that.
I understand the cost associated with the district, but the cost associated, the hourly cost would not be the $65 an hour. It'd be what the
staff cost would
the
be.
Staff
Yes.
cost would be.
Yeah, which is honestly fairly close to that.
Really?
With the weighted salaries, yes.
Wow. Okay.
But I also worry about the LEDs that don't have the escalators built in. I mean, although they're not in a situation of concern right now, they're doing well on their own. But what happens in the future is we're going to find out, like in my district, 20 years ago, there was plenty of money to fund the LED and take care of the necessities, but it's not today. And so,
because they don't have that built-in escalator.
right. And then now the CFD side of things, we have that escalator built in for the new development, but the LEDs, the old LEDs, just don't. So I mean, ultimately, it's going to catch up to where.
And it's unfortunate, but we might have the tale of two different neighborhoods in a sense. The LEDs that are on a built-in escalator that are going along with the inflationary costs, and those that are not. And with those costs that rise, once the costs rise, you might not be able to afford it.
If I may, to the mayor's point with the CFDs, we have gotten better during development to factor in those costs. So parks or districts with parks in them, we're actually factor in staff time and cost to go in there and clean those, because we're getting pocket parks or neighborhood parks with more amenities than what we typically have in our older pocket parks. So we're having to go in there and clean more regularly. We have arbors, we have barbecue pits, we We have things like that. So we're trying to capture those costs and get those in the CFDs early so we have the money to be able to pay staff to do that. So I think moving forward, if we continue with contractual services and continue to monitor where we're at with the CFDs as they get added on, maybe we can add the staff to maintain the CFDs and we look at the LADs a little different. But I think as staff, we should continue to monitor that and make sure that we're offering the best service at the best price.
Just my thoughts.
It's good to have a discussion on this because this is going to, over the next 4 years of the implementation of AB 1572, there's a lot of, it's going to.
And we have CFDs that have good amount of park space in them coming up that are under development and planning stages and stuff. So we can't expect those to be maintained 1 day a week with the contract. So we're having to have staff time. So we're incorporating that into.
So the thought process is maybe the LADs be contracted out, but the CFDs maybe could go in-house so we could have more of a.
Or the neighborhood parks would be funded by the CFDs, but city staff maintaining those parks. Those are all options that we would have to monitor.
But I appreciate you bringing those options to us so we can have that conversation.
One thing that comes to mind is I have people on a regular basis call me and ask me if I know anybody that needs their yards done or whatever. So there's a lot of smaller contractors or landscape people. So I don't know what the requirements are for them to take and do this.
So
I think a lot of people and everything else that might qualify basically aren't looking online to find out if there's a job available, so they probably didn't apply. Because my thought process is if Clovis and Tulare landscaping contractors can do it cheaper, or it would be hard for me to figure with their travel cost and everything that they could be cheaper than what we could take and have some local people if they were aware of it or if they.
What I've found is that typically smaller contractors don't want to deal with the DIR reporting, don't want to deal with prevailing wage things. We do require, bonds, performance bonds, payment bonds. Our insurance requirements are $2 and $4 million. A lot of the smaller guys don't want that overhead, so they don't bid these
But
projects.
it's still hard for me to believe that only one person here out of Kings County applied, or was willing to take and do it, or was competitive enough to get chosen.
Yeah, in my years of doing this, I've seen there's usually about 6 or 7 companies that bid on these city projects, and the smaller guys typically do.
And I reached out to a couple landscapers that I knew and to let them know that it was going up to bid, and what they expressed to me is exactly what,
Much trouble.
Alvin was saying. It was just the costs, the insurance and all of the overhead costs were too much for them to even go for the bid, to consider applying for the bid.
Another reason to love prevailing wage, right?
I have nothing more.
Any other questions or comments? We need to take action here on what we want to do.
I'd just like to make a move because we have entered into a contract to accept the report and continue the contractual services for the citywide landscape maintenance of all landscape assessment districts and CFDs at this time.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk. Item passes 4-1. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is council reports and general reports. Council have anything? I just want to thank my colleagues for attending the 135th birthday celebration that we had on Thursday Night Marketplace. I know our vice mayor and the city manager were at the League of Cities meeting. So my other colleagues and I were able to distribute cake, 2 big sheet cakes pretty quick. I think we did that in about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, that was pretty
It was
impressive.
fun. So thank you everyone that was there and participated. It was a great night. So anybody else have anything?
I'd just like to thank my daughter. She's probably watching right now. She was the one putting the forks in the cake. So Ava, great job.
Okay, any items for future agenda, council? Okay, seeing none. Upcoming events and important dates: August 29th, Winter Wonderland Job Fair here at City Hall for the Recreation and Community Services Department from 10 a.m. to 11:30, and you can apply at City of Hanford Jobs. Our next City Council meeting is September 1st. September 5th is a free e-waste recycling event at the City Corporation Yard at 900 South 10th Avenue from 8 a.m. to noon. If you got computers or televisions or things like that you want to get rid of, great opportunity to do that. And then a reminder that on September 7th, the city offices will be closed in observance of Labor Day. And having said that, it is 8:05 and the meeting is adjourned.